Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the lesson number 21 of the series of tutorial on how to build a premium theme for WordPress. Welcome again. In this tutorial we're gonna finally completely style our standard post content file, our CSS. So if we take a look at the current status of our theme, we notice that everything's broken. We just printed all the information and we just smashed all the content there without properly styling. We created the HTML containers for that, but now we have to do a little bit of styling with our SASS file. So if we access our code editor, and if you follow my tutorial and you follow all my guidance, you will notice that I have just one single SASS file that is currently the sunset.scss file. And in here I listed and I'm coding everything. I'm coding variables, mixing, font icons, and so on until the last tutorial where I coded the navbar. This is not wrong, but of course when you have a massive file, a massive site, it gets kind of complicated to update. You have just one single file and it's like a little bit overwhelming because it's just huge and hard to maintain. So one of the good practices about SASS is splitting this file in other sub files and other like smaller files to manage simple and small portions of code. So let's split this file to organize our SASS folder a little bit better. Always remember before starting to activate your terminal or your command line and use the SASS command to watch your SASS folder and generate everything and properly compile everything into the CSS folder. Otherwise, nothing's gonna work. So in the SASS folder, we can create a subfolder called base. And inside here, we could start creating a new file called _variables.scss. And here we can copy our variables, just like open the variable and paste. Save this file, and in the sunset main file, the sunset.scss, we can import the file that we just generated with the variables inside this section, so we know that we're including the file with variables. To do that, we have to write simply import single quote base dash variables. Save it. Let's go check our terminal, and here everything is written properly. So if we go in our CSS generated file and we check our sunset.css, you will notice that here the font family is working and we have the font family railway on the body, even if we don't have the variables written here, but our body, it's calling the variable body font. So just as a test, if we want, we can just remove railway and just leave Helvetica. We save it. We go back in the sunset.css and we notice that the body automatically updated, the style automatically updated, and now there's no railway anymore. We're just Helvetica. So that's kind of cool. That's really important because we have now this file, this variable.scss, where we can list all our variables. It doesn't matter how long it's going to be because it's not going to affect the length of this main file, and we can organize everything in a better way. So let's maybe copy the comment, package sunset, variables. All these comments will be automatically stripped from the final CSS because we defined a compressed style inside our CSS watch command declaration. We can do exactly the same for mixing, font icons, and maybe a generic class, or probably we can leave it like that, but let's do the same for the mixing and the font icons to just have everything better organized. Underscore mixins.css, new file, underscore font icon.scss. Let's open font icon. Let's copy this. Let's copy the mixins inside the mixins files. Paste it here. Let's copy the header so we have everything with a consistent header package declaration. And here we can just simply rename this in import variables at import phase mixins. If we want, we can organize a little bit better here. Mixins at import base / font icons. As you notice, I'm not specifying the underscore or the extension .scss because it's not necessary. SASS will automatically recognize what kind of a file we want to import and what kind of partial file we want to import. And also, let's remove these font icons from here because we don't need it. Create a little bit more space and let's put everything in here. Save it. This is font icon. And of course, if we refresh the front end, nothing changed because we didn't edit anything. We are still calling our variables. We are still calling all our CSS declaration, but we just split it in different files for a better organization. As a suggestion, I noticed sometimes that a lot of developers create a lot of different folders like vendor folder, framework, modules, component, pages. They oversplit the SASS file in all these different tiny subfolders, subfiles. And sometimes it becomes something like super massive with a lot of different sections. And just keep it simple. Don't go more than 2-3 folders in like total. Maybe have like the base folder, then you can have the vendor folder if you're using a third-party library, like probably the SASS version of Bootstrap if you want, and maybe have another folder called modules if you have some specific module that is reusable like buttons, headers, or menus. But don't go over that. Like, do not over organize your file. Do not create a folder inside a subfolder of another subfolder. It gets kind of complicated, and especially try to think of your future you, maybe going back and checking this file or checking this website, this theme after a year, or maybe after 2-3 months you have to update something and you don't really remember where you put all your files and what the hell this structure was about. Keep it as simple as possible, as organized as possible, and don't destroy yourself and try to split everything in subfolders. So let's keep going. Now we can finally style our standard post, and instead of creating some like specific class for each element, like create the standard post h1 title, the category, and the featured image, we have to just change a little bit of our CSS logic and use the logic of components. If we take a look at the design file, you will notice that pretty much all the different post type, they have kind of the similar style, even if something's different. For example, the post title here is external, is on top, here is inside the picture, and we have this nice gallery here. But the style is exactly the same except for the color. So we have to try to write as less style sheet, as less CSS as possible to avoid to repeat the same classes or the same declaration and make our life way easier. So let's try to use a component logic base. And of course, everything I'm doing, it's totally reversible, totally updatable. Like what I'm doing is not the one and only truth. You can absolutely change everything, and I'm gonna do that. Like during the process of coding this theme, I'm gonna change stuff on the go because I change my mind or I find another better method. So let's just keep going and let's starting with this stuff. So let's duplicate this comment here and we can call standard post format. Let's access our template file called content.php to see what kind of classes we defined. So first of all, we have the entry header, entry content, and the entry footer that are the three major sections that are splitting and are separating our post. The first one that I want to style is the text center. So I don't need to create a class because Bootstrap already have a text align center class. So just use the text center class here. Let's go here, and now we have the text center align. Now let's style a little bit this stuff. First, we have h1 entry title. And because it's gonna be completely consistent with all our section, I don't need to create a custom class for this entry title, but I'm gonna call it in the same way. So h1.entry-title, or because I'm on SASS, I can use this h1 ampersand dot entry title. In this way, I can independently style the h1, and plus I can create a separated class for just in case the h1 has an entry title class. So let's style this stuff and let's check what we did here. Font size 48 pixel, font weight, it's extra light, so 200. So the h1 in general, all the h1 that I'm gonna have in this page, we will always have a 48 pixel font size and a font weight of 200, but the entry title can be different based on if I'm on the home page, I am on a single page. So for now, all the rest of the other style I'm gonna put just for this specific option if the h1 is the entry title. So if we have an h1 that's the entry page, is not the entry title, we will have the ability to create another style without overriding the previous style. For now, I put margin on top, I want 50 pixel right and left 0, and then 20 pixel at the bottom. I want padding 0 and the line height of 1.5 em. The em, the emphasis value, is relative to the font size. A lot of developers, a lot of users use rem. It's based on the body size. So if in the body of the HTML has a font size of default of 16 or 14 pixels, this REM, this 1.5 will be calculated based on the font size of the body and not on the font size of the parent element. I like to use EM, so if I change the font size here once, all the other values are going to be updated based on the font of my parent. It's up to you which one you prefer, which one you feel more comfortable to update and to maintain. It's not necessary to use it. So let's go back in our front end, let's refresh it. Now we have this nice style and it's kind of slightly better. Now we have these two elements here. If we access the site, you will notice I have these two symbols at the beginning and at the end of my text, and I could create these two symbols. First, I don't want the user to write these two symbols, but I want this to be permanent, so always present. It doesn't matter what kind of title the user writes. So I could do in two ways, or I access the actual file and I write it manually here. I input this symbol and I leave a little bit of space and leave it like that. But if I do this, I have to repeat this code in every file, in every different post format file. I don't want to do that. I want this to be a global thing. I want this to be globally manageable. So let's do it with SASS. So let's open the brackets inside of the entry title because I want to use this only inside the entry title. And let's put an ampersand column before and comma and ampersand column after. So we're saying that both before and after we want a content single quote with this nice symbol. Then I want to display inline block, and then I want to position relative. And if we go check the front end, we will see that these two symbols just appear. Now we can style it differently, like independently, because we can do, again, ampersand dot before margin right is 10 pixel, and then we can have ampersand dot after margin left 10 pixel. And now we have nice style. We have our title. These two elements are dynamically implemented. So if in the future we want to update something, we want to change style, we want to change element, we just like comment this stuff, and these two elements will disappear for all our titles, all the next post formats that we're going to print, because are dynamic. So we don't have to update every single file. Let's keep going. Let's style this bottom part, and let's check what is the style that we created for this stuff. Our class is entry meta. We're gonna do everything with dot entry dash meta. And here we have a font size of 13 pixels, a font weight of 300, and a color. So now here we have this color, that 8989, this color. I'm gonna use this color a lot during the generation of the website. We have the same color here for the button, we have the same color here for the list of tags, same color here for the comments, and so on, so on. So this color, instead of writing it over and over again, we can create a variable to use it and avoid to write the same color 1,000 times, because always in the future, if we decide to update that specific color, we have to change just one variable. So let's create this variable called light gray, or maybe let's keep it consistent, light dash gray, and we can have the color that we specified before. Save it, and now here we can call the variable for the color. Save it. Let's go back in our front end and check. Now we have the right font weight, font size, and the right color. Of course, here we have some links. So links by default gets overridden, like the style gets overridden by the default color that the browser applies, that usually is this horrible blue with this underscore and all this kind of stuff. So we can change it. First of all, I don't want my link to have an underline, so I don't want any text decoration. So we can extend the generic section here, and we can specify an A ampersand over ampersand focus text decoration none. So now all our links, it doesn't matter what kind of link, we won't have, oops, there's a ampersand, not variable. All our links, we won't have any text decoration. It doesn't matter what kind of link. I don't have to repeat text decoration none for every single element, because we specified a global attribute for all the links here for both over and focus. So now here we can have our custom style inside the entry meta. We wanna check if we have a link inside the entry meta, and the link is gonna have a font weight of 500. Let's refresh here. Perfect. We're gonna have the same color, and then we can see we have the same color, and now we can give it a nice rollover. So let's go with black and rollover, and here we can always also open the brackets and copy the style maybe, so we don't write it again. But of course, instead of declaring text decoration, we just declare a color of maybe one a darker gray. We didn't create variable for the darker gray, so we can do that and always use that same variable. So dark gray, this can be 333 333. Save it. Let's go back here, color dollar dark gray. Save it. Let's go back here, Good, nice. The thing that I don't like though is like the rollover is just, there's no rollover, like it's immediate, it's switch the color. I want a nice smooth transition, so I want to use, I think I already have the mixins. If we access the mixins file, we have the animation, so we can define what kind of animation we want for the link. And in my case, I want to animate the color attribute, so we can check. We can copy maybe something that we already specify here, and inside the A generic attribute, we can paste animate color, and let's leave it at 320 milliseconds. Let's go back here, let's refresh, and now we have this nice smooth transition. We don't have an immediate jump or an immediate change of the code, so it's better. It's like more responsive, like more smooth. Let's remove a little bit of padding at the bottom here, because we have also the line height that is contributing a little bit of space underneath. The margin bottom here can be just 5 pixels because we have a nice line height, so we don't need to create too much space. And we can also remove a little bit of padding top, 1. Maybe let's leave it at 0, because with the line height like that, nice and tight. So now we have to style the picture here, and we have already the class for the picture, so we have to change a little bit the file here. First, I don't want to print the post thumbnail inside the standard feature. I mean, I want the standard feature, but I don't want to print the actual image, but I want to put it as a background picture. So first of all, let's apply a style, a class that we already defined inside our generic section inside the CSS called background image. So we have all the stuff that we need to have a proper background aligned image. Let's paste the code here, and here we have to retrieve the URL. We cannot print the post timeline. We want just the URL of our featured image. To do that, we have to use a super simple PHP code with a bunch of WordPress functions, of course, that can help us in achieve this stuff. So here we can create a variable called featured underscore image, that it's going to be equal to WP underscore get underscore attachment underscore URL. This function is really important, it's really useful, because we can always retrieve the URL of whatever picture we want. If we know the ID of that specific picture, we can retrieve whatever URL. So it doesn't matter if it's a featured image, it doesn't matter if it's a picture inside the blog loop. If we know the ID, we can retrieve the URL. To know the ID, to get the ID, we have to use another function inside this one, that is get underscore post underscore thumbnail ID. And the thumbnail ID, of course, it will retrieve the ID of the thumbnail of a specific post. And inside here, as a value, we have to specify the post ID. So we are inside the post loop. We have already our ID here, so just use the function of WordPress get the underscore ID, and no value has to be passed. So now we have this featured image that we can, for now, as a test, echo it and print this variable and check if we did something wrong. So now, as you can see here, we have the full URL of our featured image. We can use this as a background picture. So let's remove this stuff here. Cut it, right, style, it's equal to background image column URL, open brackets, and echo the featured image, and semicolon at the end. Even it's not necessary having a semicolon in the style, inline style, but if we have just one single style, if you have multiple styles, of course the semicolon is necessary, but you can avoid it, it doesn't really matter. But let's save it, let's check it. Let's refresh. Of course, nothing's gonna show up here because the standard featured div container, it's completely flat. It's completely at 0 height. So we have to specify a specific height and make it a display block. Let's go here and let's scroll down here. Let's create a dot standard dash featured and height 330 pixels. Display block. And we have a little bit of style. So let's go back here, let's refresh. And now we have our featured image with the featured image inside here as a background. So if we resize, the featured will be constantly resized properly in the same way as our header. So we don't have to manage weird value of height and width and height to maintain the correct proportion, because we are using it as a background picture. The thing that we have to do here, we have a little bit of style, a little bit of nice style with the background, with a box shadow inside the box shadow. So let's do this. Let's apply this style to our featured image. We can do it in two ways. We can apply the style directly to the div and create a box shadow inset, or we can create another element on top with the box shadow and then manage that box shadow, because also the featured image, I want the featured image to be clickable. I want this to be clickable to go to the actual blog post URL. But when I go and roll over on this div, I want to create a nice animation, maybe darkers a little bit the picture, or it lightens the picture. So let's do this. Let's define a position relative to the standard featured, and then inside here, inside the brackets, as usual, go ampersand column after, because I want this to be after the picture. So on top of the picture, I want content to be empty. I want this to be a position absolute, and I want this to be a display block. So when you create a pseudo element in CSS, you have always to specify these three values. It doesn't matter what kind of element you're creating, if it's an actual element with a text inside, or if it's just a container, if it's just like a random floating element. You have always to specify the content, the position, and the display. If you miss one of these, it's not gonna work. So always remember this. And now we can have top 0, right 0, bottom 0, and left 0. So this new element that I'm creating here is gonna span completely for the height and width of the parent element, because the parent element is a position relative. So it's gonna be as big as the standard featured, and we don't have to worry about realigning and reassigning. We don't have to specify the same height, because it's gonna follow that same height. And here we can give it a background color of dark, but with a little bit of opacity. So RGBA, and we can put 0, 0, 0, and then the last one is the alpha, so 0.35. And now we can use the box shadow column inset to have the box shadow inside. We can specify the X alignment, the Y alignment, and the opacity, the blurriness, in my case is 15 pixels, and then we can specify the color. And also in here we can use RGBA, so we can control the alpha value of just the shadow, 0.5. We're gonna change dynamically this element in our inspector, because I don't know if I like it. Of course, it's not too bad, but let's change dynamically this kind of stuff. So let's access the after element that, as you can see, is exactly the same width and height of our container. And here we can, the background color maybe is 15, is not bad. And here, let's reduce this as 10. No, it's too tight. I think I like it at 15, but here I want this to be maybe at 35. Yes, more subtle. So 15 and 35. The background is 15 and this one is 35. Save it. And now we can create a variation. If we go standard featured and we apply in the content, we apply a link here to include the standard feature, we can create rollover effect when, of course, the user goes on rollover. If we want, we can convert in the easiest way, we can convert this div class, this container class, into an A class, or we can wrap around the A element and have another class to specify all the stuff. The easiest way is to have this as an A element, but let's use A class standard featured link. href is, as usual, we can use href, we can use the WordPress, the permalink. Let's indent and let's give it an A class here. So let's copy this style. Standard feature link. Let's go with display block, position relative, so it's gonna incubate, it's gonna include the entire section, the entire space of the element inside. And I don't want this to be, I don't want the standard feature to be dependent of the standard feature link, because I could have this style outside a simple link. Maybe I could have this style inside the post and I don't need to include the link inside this post. So this one has to be detached. But the thing that we have to do, we have to create a rollover style. So an ampersand column hover or ampersand column focus, and inside here we can go inside standard dash featured and ampersand after. We can change the background color to RGBA 0 0 0 0. So we give an half of 0. I could have done this, like I could do this with the opacity by changing the opacity of the entire element, but by changing the opacity of the entire element, I would affect also the opacity and the visibility of the box shadow, and I don't want to do that. I want to just remove the background color, the dark patch that is on top, but I want to maintain the inset box shadow. So I'm gonna animate just this. And of course, I want to apply a mixin to animate the background color. And we already have it here. We did it before. So we're gonna repeat the same thing. Let's copy this. Include mixing. Let's paste it here inside the after. Animate. We want to animate the background color, not the color. Create some space. Save. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. And now, see? Creating a nice animation. Here, of course, the title is not connected to a link, so we have to fix this also. So let's go back in our content.php, and also here we can extend this dtitle function here and put a tag inside href, use the double quote, and then equal, and then single quote to connect a PHP function with a single dot. And we want to escape the URL. We want to escape the URL because we are inside the function, so we don't want to print the URL. We want to escape it safely, and again print the permalink. Let's use a rel element for HTML that is called bookmark. So we're gonna say that this is our link bookmark, and then here we can close the A tag. Maybe we just want /. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end, refresh. And of course the style changed because we have now a link that is overriding our H1. So it's applying this blue horrible color. So let's fix that too. Let's go back here, H1. And we want to give the H1 a color of, do we have a basic color? No. Let's use the primary color variable that I'm gonna define. In our case, the primary color variable is black. We don't have weird color, but let's always use a variable because you never know when you can decide to update this color. So here is the primary color, and also inside we want to use the a tag color primary color to specify this has a dark gray. Maybe we can change this, we can remove, we can apply to the generic a link and maybe create some exceptions for our single elements if we want. Save. Let's go back here, refresh, and now we have the nice transition. Now we have the same transitions here. Let's keep going and style the excerpt and these elements here. So first of all, we have a container to style that is called entry excerpt. And if we notice here, if we analyze, of course, always the inspect element, we notice that we have entry excerpt and then a paragraph. WordPress automatically, when we print the excerpt, is going to print the excerpt inside a paragraph. So the paragraph by default, if you use a framework, if you use a CSS library or something, is already styled. So if we style the entry excerpt, most likely our style won't be recognized because the paragraph style inside the entry excerpt is going to override. So we have to define the entry excerpt and the paragraph. We can use the entry excerpt as a container to define margin and padding to align properly this thing, but the paragraph has to be styled with the font options that we want. Entry excerpt paragraph inside. So entry excerpt, we're gonna have a margin of 30 pixel, 0 and 16 pixel. Font size 17 pixel. Line height, let's go 1.4 emphasis. We have to change the font weight and we have to increase the line height. So the line height, I want this to be 1.5, and then the font weight is 300. I don't know if it should be less. That's good. And here something is missed. So one aspect that it's always, or like most of the time, not considered is the letter spacing. Let's increase a little bit the letter spacing. If you notice here, it's all squished and it's kind of hard to read. Okay, this is Latin, so it's super hard to read, but with standard text, we need to increase a little bit the letter spacing to make it more readable. And also the letter spacing can be relative to the font size with the emphasis value, so 0.01 emphasis. And here it's a little bit less tight, but we can increase maybe a 0.02. Oh yeah, way more readable. And here we can maybe pump it up 18. Let's leave it 17. 0.02, it's good. Awesome. Now we have to style this button center aligned and change the standard button of WordPress. So let's go back in our content file here, the button container instead of button default. Let's go button sunset and button container. Also in this case, we can apply a bootstrap class of text center. So our button is going to be text center align and can style now my button sunset. Button dash sunset. We want text transform uppercase. Font size 14 pixel. Font weight 200. Color, we have our light gray variable. Then we want to give it padding of 6 pixel, 10 pixel to have 6 pixel top and bottom and 10 pixel left and right. And we want to give it a border radius of 0 and border of 1 pixel solid, and also this light gray variable. And here inside we can specify ampersand hover, comma, ampersand focus, and we go color dark gray and border color dark gray. Save it. Let's go back in our front end, refresh. Now we have the style. We have this rollover color. I don't really like this rollover color. I don't really like how it works. So we can change a little bit. Instead of border collapse, maybe border color, we can swap things around. So font weight, let's pump it up to 300. Let's create a little bit of more space. So our button is gonna occupy more space, gonna be easier to click. And here I wanna create background color. I wanna specify transparent as background color, and I wanna change the background color to dark gray as well. And this one, I wanna change it to white. Let's refresh. And now we have this transition. Of course, the background doesn't have an animation. So it's animating the color, but it's not animating the border color. So because we apply to the A link an animation of color only, it's applying just the animation of the color. You can see that the rollover color has a different timing of the background and the border. Everything just snaps to the next color, but the text color just does the animation. I want to apply the same animation to this one. So to do it super quickly, I can specify the button sunset, because I know that button sunset is going to have maybe different colors and different iterations that I can apply with different classes. I can include an animate, and I can extend the animate to all elements. I don't want to just animate background color or just the color, and always specify 320 milliseconds to keep the timing consistent with all the other elements. And now we have this nice smooth transition, and I really like it. Now we have to style the last part. First of all, let's style just what's missing, that is the button container that we specified here, to give a little bit of space to our button. And of course, I don't want the button sunset to be dependent of the button container. So the button container is going to be independent, and it's not going to affect the style of the button sunset. Margin bottom 30 pixel. Nice style. And now we can style this thing. So first of all, let's create a padding to separate the bottom of our article to the next article. And instead of using entry footer, if we notice here, the entry footer as border a border color here, we don't want to create another element. So the entry footer is not going to have this massive margin bottom, but this is going to be style for the article container. So the article has a post class or whatever, but we can specify the generic container of article that it's going to be always the same. And let's go back on top, because it's the beginning, is the main wrapper, and it's HTML5. So no, we don't have to specify any dot or hashtag to specify the ID. It's just article. And here, margin bottom of 60 pixel. So all the articles that we're gonna have in the future, are gonna come with the 60 pixel of bottom, and maybe 60 pixels is not enough. So let's go in 80 pixel. It's fine. Now we have to style this stuff. Let's go back in our content.php and let's check what we did here. The sunset post footer, we have to access the function that we generated to create this specific option. And because we're using Bootstrap, we can use the style. We already did it. If we access the source code and we check here, of course, we will notice that we have two columns. We have the first column that contains the tag and the second column that contains the comment. We have to just align this to the right. And of course, we have already the Bootstrap class to do it. We don't have to rewrite another class. So let's go to theme support option, where our sunset posted footer class function is, and here in the second container we can just write text right, save it. Let's go back and check here. Now we have the text right aligned. Let's check if everything aligned. Yes, these two are aligned inside our main container. And now we have to style as we did before. Starting with the entry footer. Let's create a padding of the entry footer of 10 pixel and I think 0. Padding at 5, so let's go padding entry pixel 5 pixel, border bottom 4 pixel, solid variable call lighter. Great. Or you can name your variable as you wish, of course. And maybe let's organize here and based on the tone, so from darker to lighter. Let's go back in the sunset and let's use lighter gray. So first of all, the entry footer has color of light gray. Everything has light gray. Plus all the A tags inside the entry footer have a color of light gray as well. So now all the A tags. Now here we have to style a little bit of padding and a little bit of alignment, of course. All these text is uppercase. So it's a generic text transform, uppercase. And all the A tag, we can have a display inline block, and then we can give it a padding of 0, top bottom 0, but a padding of 4 pixel left and right. Nice. And then we can shrink down the font size to 14 pixel, 12 pixel. So I don't want to apply the padding here because I have different type of padding. So if we access the theme support option, we have to create a couple of unique specific rules for this section. So the tags list, we have the tags list here. We can style the tags list with the specific list of tags, like a specific CSS file, CSS style. So here inside tags list, we can access the A tag inside the tags list, and we can specify here the padding of 0 and 4 pixels. So this padding here, this tags list is gonna have the padding here. We want to give a little bit more padding to the left, so the tags list is gonna have a margin left of 10 pixels. No, I don't want to affect tags list. So tags list sunset icon, we can create a specific unit class to tags list dot sunset icon margin right 10 pixel. Good, I like it. That's how I want it. And now the comments here. The comment, it's kind of tricky because the entire A tag is it's clickable. So also the icon, the sunset icon here of the comment is clickable. So I have to style just the sunset icon here, and I have to create just a unique class to split to specify that this comment is different. So let's apply the class to the A tag. Class equal comments dash link. Copy this class, save it, sunset.css, inside here, entry footer, comments link dash sunset icon, margin left 10 pixel. And now we have the nice style. Also here we have to specify the rollover effect, that it's gonna be pretty much identical to the entry meta option. So inside here we can copy this, and inside the A tag we can specify hover and dark gray. So we are now the rollover 1, 2, 3. We have our comments list that highlights everything, also the comment. And that's it. We specified the standard blog post type. That now we have all these style, and the style, it's kind of good. We have to adapt a little bit, adjust a couple of things to make it work for the responsive environment, but it's not too complicated. It just looks kind of decent in a responsive environment, but not too much. And the good thing is that because we use the components logic, so we didn't say like this is the standard feature, this is the standard button, this is only the standard list of tags. We use global tags. We don't have, in the next lesson, rewrite any of this code. We already have this entire code, and we have to use just the same tags to generate the other blog post, the other post tag list. And if something changes, of course, because you have different post formats, something changes, we can apply a generic class on top to override the small things that are gonna change. So it's pretty much it for today's lesson. Thank you guys for checking this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you have a couple of minutes, just take a look at the support me page, where you can find all different ways to support me, to support my channel, and help me to do better video and more tutorials for you. So thank you again guys for checking this video, and as usual, until the next lesson, happy coding!